Hello, everybody. My name is Paul Collins, and this is the Happy Hour. My co-host is my wife, Nancy, and we have a special guest today, Steve Flanagan. More about that in a moment. First things first, this is the friendliest show on radio. It is the best look on Facebook, and it is for every rube on YouTube. How about that? My words rhyme sometimes. And disclaimer, Acts Ministry nor Acts Media Group nor any of their board members or employees or volunteers or anyone connected with them are responsible for the contents of this program. I like to say that every week. By the way, it's Friday again. Comes around every week at this time. So here we are, ready to go. And by the way, this is brought to you basically by Acts Ministry. That's ACTS. And Acts Media Group is a department of Acts Ministry. And you can go online and find out a lot of good stuff at actsmediagroup.com. And upcoming right away, beginning July 19, is Acts Fest. It's the annual conference for Acts Ministry. And on Friday, July 19th, there will be workshops most of the day from about 8:30 in the morning until about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Workshops in this building, Plaza Towers, Springfield, Missouri. Tall 10-story building, 1736 East Sunshine, corner of East Sunshine and South Glenstone, on the third floor in the conference room. And seating is limited, so if you're interested in the workshops, be sure and contact somebody, as you can see online or watching on Facebook and so forth. Anyway, workshops on discrimination against those who are getting some age on them, workshops on nonprofits, 501c3s, workshops on how to get a brand for your business or your ministry, branding, workshops on Acts Ministry University, etc. Anyway, Matt is our
we'll be doing
station manager, and he'll be giving us a rundown, right?
Well, we'll be doing, also Jay and I will be doing a workshop from 1 to 2 p.m. up there on opportunities with Acts Television Network.
Right.
And then so the banquet is coming up that Saturday, starting at 6:30. It's from 6 to 6:30, as if you've got a booth you can set up.
Okay.
And then from that point on until about 9 o'clock is when the whole Acts Fest banquet is. There's going to be award ceremonies. It's a dress up in a period costume, a time period costume, and they're going to be voting on the best costume. By the end of the night, someone will get an award. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm going as a chubby guy from in the year 2019.
I'm going. I'm going as an over-the-hill preacher in 2019.
That works.
And by the way, tickets for the banquet are $25. I think they're all gone. They are.
It's a $25 recommended donation for the seat and the food. Right,
and it's a great buffet. It's a great occasion. Great music. Becca Steiner singing. She's from Blue Springs, Missouri. Let's see. What else can I tell you? Oh, donations are always appreciated. Go online and click on the donate button for Acts Ministry, Acts Media Group, and you can find Natural Solutions Store on there, and that's naturalsolutionstore.bz if you want to do it directly, and all kinds of products, 43 products, in fact, natural supplements that will be beneficial to the old human body. And don't forget, there's the Helping Hands Fund that Acts Ministry created to try to help those people purchase supplements who otherwise couldn't afford them, and so forth. And we will be having a report at the awards banquet about the man who received the kidney transplant, who was one of our causes that we supported.
Is he going to be there? Do you know?
He will not be there, but his representative will be there.
Okay, which would be Jackie, right?
Right, be Jackie Scott, who's been with Acts Ministry a long time. All right, having said all of that, today our guest, Steve Flanagan, represents something vitally important to the American public in particular. And those of you who are watching and listening in Germany, I think the same thing is probably true for your your country because you're right up in the 21st century with the rest of us. But for those around the world and in this country, Springfield, Missouri is our headquarters. That's where we are. We're in the southwest areas of Missouri, which is in the middle of the United States. And east of us here and south a little bit is a wonderful place of business where Steve Flanagan hangs out to work with people who have hearing issues. Now, Steve, I've been told that we have a generation, maybe more than one, that have abused their ears because of wearing earphones, listening to music on their iPads, or being exposed to loud music. Is that true?
Well, there is some truth to that, yes. We're exposed to more noise than any generation has ever been, and some of it is self-inflicted. A lot of it is recreational. People expose themselves to harmful noise in shooting guns and watching motorcycle racing and car racing, and there's a whole group of ways we expose ourselves to damaging noise.
Do you think people have an awareness of protecting their ears?
No, I don't think that that's been stressed enough. You need to protect your hearing. And a rule of thumb that we always recommend is if you hear a noise after you turn the noise off, you're doing permanent damage.
Oh my. Think about that, young guys in this studio audience, listening to music with earplugs. You're putting the sound directly in there, and it's a whole lot different than it being on stage. But even when it's on stage, your generation loves loud music.
Well, sound pressure, when you have something in the ear and it only has a few millimeters to travel to the eardrum, then it takes less pressure than if you don't have anything in your ear and you're listening to a speaker on a stage that's coming out at 100 dB. It dissipates pretty quickly. So you have to be careful about, about having things too loud and in your ear. And
now, for the benefit of our audience, what is a dB?
Well, so it's just a measure. It's a way we measure sound.
About decibels, maybe?
It stands for decibels, and it's just a measurement of sound.
Right.
Just like feet or inches is a measurement of distance, or, there's liquid measurements. A dB is just a measurement of sound.
I have a friend who was a professional, had a degree in maritime engineering. Then he became a licensed professional counselor. He got his master's in counseling. And he was attending a church that had very loud music. And he took a little gadget to measure the sound. And the sound was way up in the danger level, about as high as you could go. Because he'd been talking to the music director about how he would take his hearing aids out and it was still too loud. It was hurting his ears. And when he told the music director, he said, look, here's what's happening. He said, we're not going to change the music. And so every Sunday, there are a lot of people sitting in churches now that are having irreparable damage, perhaps, done to their ears. I would say because of this generation, you have a career well established for the rest of your life because of there's an increasing need for hearing aids.
Well, I've always said, and I've been in this industry for 35 years. I've always told people that if you're suffering from hearing loss, you should be grateful that there are dedicated scientists and engineers and technicians who have devoted their life, their scientific life, to making that problem better, because the science of hearing has improved a lot in such a short period of time thanks to computerization.
I think there's a lot of people that don't realize how much hearing loss they have experienced because it's been a gradual thing. I know in my own case, back in the year 2004, at an Axe Fest banquet, one of our banquets, I was in charge, and I was having them play a CD of a entertainer who was part of our ministry who had passed on, and I couldn't. I kept saying, "Crank it up so we can hear it," and I didn't know it, but they were blasting everybody out because I was judging it by my hearing. So went out to dinner a day or two later with a couple of friends, a man who wore hearing aids, and he said, "Paul, you need to have your ears checked. You need hearing aids." I said, "No, I'm fine. You need hearing aids." He said, "That music was so loud it was bothering everybody." No. Then I was I was teaching at Ozark Technical Community College, and they had a free hearing thing for faculty, some students that were learning about hearing. And I went in, sat down, and they checked my hearing, and my opinion was, these students don't know what they're talking about.
All right, yeah. It happens gradually.
Right. And then, when I finally gave in and went to a seminar about hearing, I got my eyes opened and my ears opened.
Mm-hmm.
And the result are these.
Well, everyone's always heard you don't know what you don't know.
That's right.
And
that's
that's what happens is hearing loss happens gradually over a long period of time, and the person who it's happening to is not really the best judge of how it's affecting their life. Other people that communicate with them are a better input for them.
And Steve, can we just be, from my standpoint here, honest enough to tell people that no matter how good this technology is, it is not like your own ears.
Well,
so
no one can restore your hearing to normal.
no,
It's a means of compensating. And just like all of us here at the table are wearing glasses, but we don't expect to restore our vision to normal.
right,
We recognize that it's a means of compensating for a problem we have, but we still choose to put the glasses on if we want to read. We
Yes.
still choose to put the hearing aids on if we want to communicate. And
Right.
when the environment gets more difficult, like noise and speech and noise present together, then the hearing impaired just can't function anymore. The brain doesn't have enough of the right information to function.
if you can't get the signal, the brain can't make decisions.
Yeah, that's a very important thing that people need to realize. We don't hear at the ear. We no more than we see at the eye. We hear at the brain.
Right,
And getting the information, the job of the ear is to get the information to the brain in the order that we taught it language, so
Yes.
that it can function.
right,
And when it scrambles that order up, then the brain is confused. And it's really not in anyone's best interest to allow the brain to go with long periods of confusion. That's not healthy. It's not good.
right. There are even young children who've been fitted with hearing aids, right?
Oh yeah, there's a pediatric there's a whole part of the industry that is dedicated to pediatric. That's young people. I've focused my practice in geriatrics, the hearing loss that happens as we age, and it's going to happen to all of us if we get old enough.
Sure. I mentioned about children because some people identify hearing aids only with the elderly. And I remember when I was a kid, that was true. The only
Right.
people we saw with hearing aids were old men. Old women never wore them, just
Right.
old men. I think it was an eagle thing for the women, but old men would wear this thing around their neck, and this hearing aid would be huge sticking up here. And I can remember as a pastor, I'd have some in a congregation, and the old man would crank up his hearing aid to the point where it started squealing, and he'd have to turn it down. We've come a long ways from that, and people should not identify that with the hearing instruments of today.
No, that's the image we have to replace with what we now can do.
Actually, audience, when I'm wearing my hearing aids, most people, they don't even see them because they're behind the ear, and the little connecting wire is basically flesh colored, and this other little gizmo goes inside the earlobe, to help it stabilize in there. Most people don't even know I'm wearing them, especially if I've got hair enough coming down to cover them.
Right.
But there are some that insert totally into the ear, are there not?
There's some they call invisible, so they're made small enough. There's one manufacturer that makes a hearing aid that you wear for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's completely implanted down in the ear canal, and you don't take it out. You have to replace those about every 3 months with a new hearing aid, but it's worn 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And
What about showers, though?
yeah, most hearing aids, you don't wear them when you're going to shower. You don't wear them when you swim. You don't wear them when you sleep. They're all built. Modern hearing aids are all built with a nano coating or a protective coating that repels water.
Oh, okay.
Some are waterproof. They're actually waterproof, but most modern hearing aids are water resistant enough that you don't have to worry about sweat anymore, and you don't have to worry about rain. And I could probably drop those hearing aids he has into a glass of water, and they'd still be okay.
Wow.
What about those, you were talking about those implants, those that you change every 3 months. Can you shower with those?
Yeah, you do. You wear them 24 hours a day, and you swim in them 24 hours of 7 days a week.
Can you insure those? Like
Yeah,
put those on your homeowner's insurance or something?
Well, some homeowner insurance do have hearing aids as part of your goods or products, but some don't. But the hearing aid manufacturers, as part of their warranty, they have loss and damage insurance policy included in that. So if you lose it or damage it through some fault of your own, they use that insurance policy to replace it one time in the warranty period for a deductible.
I have mine also on our homeowner's policy, just in case. Nice backup, because when I don't, now I have these out because of wearing the headphones for radio portion of our broadcast today, but once I take I put them in the morning.
Yeah.
And I take them out before I go to bed.
Yeah, it's hard for people to realize that you're going to become so dependent on that product that it's the first thing you put on.
That's right.
And because you're connected to the world.
That's right.
And then when you don't have them, you're not connected. And it's the last thing you take off, usually. And for the majority of my patient base, I would say most of them wear them like that. And that's dramatically different than 15 years ago. 15 years ago, people used to take their hearing aids out when they talked on the phone. They took their hearing aids out when they got into noise. They took their hearing aids out when they, were going to be around moisture or sweat. And they found that they were taking them out more than they were wearing them. Now they don't.
I have a friend up in north central Missouri who has hearing aids that were provided by the Veterans Administration. He never wears them.
Right.
My theory is, and I base this partly on what I've heard him talk about, they were not fitted and then adjusted. He didn't go back and have them work with him. And also I think there's a certain amount of vanity that he barely wears glasses. He reluctantly gave in to that. I think a little bit of vanity involved, but
well, there is in a lot of people. But the question I always ask people is, what do you think is more obvious? Asking someone to repeat. I've had people say, "I'm sorry, could you say that again? I'm hard of hearing," but I don't want you to see a hearing aid. So what's less noticeable? Being able to carry on a conversation without saying that, "I'm sorry, I'm hard of hearing, could you say that again?" Or a well-fit hearing aid. I think a well-fit hearing aid is always less noticeable than a hearing loss.
We had an insurance agent, one of our insurance agents and a friend, came by one day before I had hearing aids, and I was talking about I was going to go and attend a seminar, and not that I needed to, and so forth, but I said something about hearing aids. He said, "Well, they're really not very obvious when you wear them now." In fact, he reached up and pulled his off. I didn't know he was wearing hearing aids. and they were just like these.
Yeah, that's my point. That's
Yeah.
my point is that they're well hidden. You don't have to, but what happens with the hearing impaired is once they get used to hearing again, then they want to show them off. They want to take them off and show them to somebody.
Yeah.
So
And I like to tell them that I can adjust them by pushing a button. I like to tell them about the Bluetooth thing that'll hang around my neck and makes my big screen TV like surround sound in a theater.
streams directly to the
Oh,
speaker. Yeah.
And I tried wearing that right after I got the hearing aids. we left the office where you're located now and headed toward home, and I was hearing phone conversations from people in passing cars. This is a lot of fun, folks.
Yeah.
You need some hearing aids. You need to be checked. I think people ought to have a hearing checkup at least once a year.
And that's a good as part of a physical. They recommend that once you get to the age of 60, you're in the risk category of hearing loss from the aging process. The number one cause for hearing loss, the number one cause is the aging process. The number two cause is exposure to noise in a
There
lifetime.
you go. That's the one I'm fond of.
And the number three cause is genetics. We inherit from our DNA, from our parents' family DNA, the likelihood of hearing loss. Usually by the time you get 60 years of age, all three of those things intersect. And so it's good as a precautionary thing to part of your physical every year or every 2 years have a hearing test done.
See, I'm really hung up on the idea that all these young guys here in the studio, they need to have their hearing tested because they've been exposed to loud music, motorcycles. We got a motorcycle rider in here.
Yeah.
Even on down to young Jordan, the stuff he's been listening to. I just think they all ought to join me and have their hearing tested.
Well, one of the things about being young is that we're 10 foot tall and we're bulletproof.
Oh yeah.
And the VA discovered that years ago that here's these young men that are 18 and 19 and 20. They're exposed to explosions, a lot of traumatic noise, but 2, 3, 4 years later when they're exiting the military and their hearing is checked, they have no real hearing damage because they're young and strong. Yeah.
Resilient.
But it's the wear and tear factor that catches up with you. So wear and tear over decades of exposure to noise, then statistically when we get 65 years of age, about a third of us are going to have hearing loss. When we're 75, about half of us, and when we're 85, about 3/4 of us. So it's just a wear and tear factor.
You're knocking on my door now. I just turned 84.
Yeah.
I want to say one more thing about this age thing, and then we'll take a commercial break. Nancy and I watch quite a lot of television, with no apologies. I watch the news and so forth, but there's a lot of hearing aid commercials, lots of them. And one that they're about to wear out is this older, chubby guy sitting there, and over here is his son. And his son, they're doing some little workshop project. His son says, "I love you, Dad." And the dad goes, "Huh? I love you, Dad. Huh?" And then he goes into this spiel, about hearing aids. And once he got his hearing aids, then he's back in this workshop setting, and here's the young son saying, "I love you, Dad." And he says, "Huh?" And he said, "I love you." He said, "I know I heard you the first time. I'd just like to hear you say it." I want to reverse that commercial. Have the dad with hearing aids telling his son, "I love you, son," and this grown son saying, "Huh," because he's been listening to loud music for 20 years, 15 years.
Yeah.
Anyway, commercial break time. What have you got for us, Matt? Do something.
Well, thank you, Dr. Paul. Glad to tell you a little bit about what we have today. I got to get myself switched over here to where they see me. Hi, everybody. I'm Matt. I'm the producer of the show here, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about stress. All right, Natural Solutions Store.bz has a product called 5-HTP, and I just want to let everybody know stress is one of the major causes of weight gain. And I know that to be true because, first of all, genetically, I'm a big guy, but I've heard it said that if you're under a lot of stress, you could just drink water and gain weight. And sometimes I think that's true. Now, stress control is important for all-around good health. Natural Solutions Store offers a product called 5-HTP to help with reducing the stress load on our bodies. And I've said this many times before. Stress causes you to release a chemical in your body called cortisol, which hardens up your arteries and causes weight gain in the midsection. It's just not a good chemical to have. When you feel anxiety, that's because your body is releasing a lot of cortisol and adrenaline into your system. Well, 5-HTP will help to slow that down, because 5-HTP is a building block of serotonin. That's the feel-good neurotransmitter that regulates our moods, sleep cycles, and even influences our response to pain. I didn't know that. Preliminary evidence suggests that the addition of 5-HTP to our diet may promote weight loss by helping to reduce the appetite and therefore the number of calories taken in. It's a win-win. This product provides natural mood-enhancing ingredients to promote well-being and stress reduction, and one bottle contains 180 capsules and is manufactured in the USA in an FDA-registered facility according to strict standards. This formula is non-GMO, gluten-free, and all-natural. Now, these statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Get your 5-HTP at www.naturalsolutionstore.bc. Back to you guys.
I think you ought to take up auctioneering and run for Congress and have as your...
One, put a 5, going to give it a bit 2, now 3, going to give it a bit 4.
See there? And then have as your slogan, fed up. Just like our Congressman Billy Long. Okay, back here to our guest, Steve Flanagan, who is a hearing aid specialist. Is that what they call you?
That's my term, yes.
Okay. Now, I want you to have the opportunity, first of all, to tell us exactly where you're located here in Springfield, which, by the way, our audience knows I fondly refer to my favorite town in the whole world, Springfield, Missouri, as Springburg, USA. So where are you located in Springburg, USA?
It's 3250 East Battlefield, Suite Inn. And so that's in the Fox Grape Shopping Center, pretty much where 65 and Battlefield intersect.
Easy to find, I can assure you, if you just take the time to look a little bit, because his business does not face Battlefield.
Right, it faces Ingram Mills.
It faces Ingram Mills, but it's right there at Fox Grape and Fox Grape Plaza. The signage is out. All you have to do is kind of look to the south on the east side of all of that, and there he is. So be sure. And what's the name of your business?
Springfield Hearing Aid Center. And you can find it on the internet at Springfield Hearing Aid Center. It was named that way so you could easily remember Springfield Hearing Aid Center.
And here I am. You know, I think you ought to rename it Springburg. Springfield Hearing Aid Center.
Yep.
I have a flyer that came in the mail, quite some time ago, which gave me the idea to invite him, because I thought, I'm wearing hearing aids. A lot of people are wearing hearing aids. I'm seeing all these hearing aid commercials. A lot of folks who are endangering their hearing. It was time to have a program about hearing aids. So I got a hold of Steve through this thing that came in the mail, and because I wanted to know if he would be on the show, and here he is. Voila, we have him. I have other advertisements, other people sending all kinds of stuff to me, because once you get on the mailing list, you're there. So what's your phone number that they can reach you to make an appointment?
It's 417-351-4100.
That ought to be easy to remember. Do it again.
It's 417-351-4100.
All right. You got that down? And
4100?
4100. And he's putting it on the screen right now as we speak. That having been said, now they know where to find you, and they know about getting an appointment. How does this work? If somebody just calls you and says, I want a hearing exam, is there a charge for the exam?
Everything starts with a hearing test. I don't know if I can help you or how to help you until I have a hearing test. We don't charge for the test. So the consultation or evaluation is free. If we can help them, then we'll put hearing aids on them from that examination and give them an idea that they can be helped. If they like the way they're hearing and they want to try, we do everything on a 30-day trial. So They'll get to wear those hearing aids in the world they live for 30 days to evaluate and get the fine-tuning aspects done of it. And they can decide by their own personal experience and their lifestyle whether or not this has been a good decision for them or not.
Of course, Steve, lots of people are going to be concerned about cost.
Right.
Can we give them some price ranges here?
Sure. You can get hearing aids everywhere from $900, they say $895, up to $3,500 a piece. And so anything less expensive than $895 is going back in technology so far that the reason why they quit making those was they didn't work very well when people got into noise in the real life.
I think, Nancy, how long have I had these hearing aids? Help me here, Mama.
Help me, Lord.
Somebody help me.
You said earlier 2004 was when you went to the seminar, so...
That may be it.
That may have been when. Okay, no, 2004.
It has it on the serial number. I can read it.
Okay, tell me. It took me a few years to get myself to a seminar.
I know that's right.
Huh? What'd you say? Oh.
She said she knows that's right, Dr. Paul.
Oh, is that what she said?
Yes.
Okay. I heard it the first time. I just wanted to hear her say it again. See, this is a happy hour.
It's too small for me to see. I'm going by the model, though. I know I know that model, and that's probably around 2011.
Okay, that sounds right. That's about right. And I think these, along with my Bluetooth deal, I spent around $5,000.
Right.
Now, for those who say, I don't walk around with $5,000 in my pocket to go buy something, there are some plans available where you can, these are financeable.
Right, and some companies offer 0%. There's a couple of finance plans that offer 0% interest if you pay it in 18 months or 12 months, and then there's others that stretch it out into smaller monthly payments, but they charge interest for those. There's finance companies that will help you with that.
Sure. In other words, it's an achievable goal for anybody who's really concerned about your hearing, and you want to have your communication skills enhanced. I'm a stickler about communication, whether it's verbal or written.
Yeah, and I want to just do an analogy here on what you spent, because let's say those are 2011, and we're now 8 years into the future,
Right.
and you've worn those every day,
Every day.
12 hours, 15 hours a day, every day
Yes.
for 8 years, 9 years. And if you divide what that cost was over the time period you've had them, what's your opinion? Have they been worth it?
Oh, my.
Oh, yes.
Can't put a price tag on it.
You can't. You can't put a price on your hearing. So good quality hearing aids are designed to last 5 to 8 years. And many will last longer than that. But what's happening in our world is technology is improving at such a rapid rate that the national average for replacing hearing aids is every 5 years. Because technology is different. And people see the rest of my life is all I have. It's getting shorter. I want the advantages of that new technology while my family can benefit from that.
I want to come back to that in just a moment, but I want to explain to our audience that when I have gone back in to have these checked, where they kind of retest my hearing and reset them, they put a thing around my neck, and they've got their little laptop computer there, and they tell me, well, according to what this reading is, you've been averaging wearing them 16 hours a day. They will tell me how much percent of time I'm filtering out noise, what percentage of time I'm listening to music. I mean, it's amazing the details.
That's called data logging, and that means that the part of the computer in the hearing aid is dedicated to teaching us how to set it better for you and the environments that you're in. So it's tracking the environments you're in and where are you still having difficulty, so we can adjust or fine-tune those hearing aids to match that.
And see, now, folks, here's the point. My hearing aids are like 8 years old. Technology has gone way beyond this in the hearing aid industry. I still recommend get your hearing tested. Won't cost you anything to be tested, and you might find out what you've been missing in communication stuff. Now, because we know that technology is moving forward, what are the technological possibilities out there right now, Steve?
Computers have gotten faster, and because they've gotten faster, they can run more complicated software. And the focus of the hearing industry for years has always been, how do we help people hear better in noise? People with hearing loss, how do we help them hear better in noise? Hearing in a quiet environment where there's one-on-one conversation and no ambient noise, that's not a difficult thing to do. But when you throw 10 things or maybe 100 things at the brain from room noise, then it becomes more complicated. What does the computer tell it wants to amplify, and what does it tell it wants to soften? And so they've just increased speed. And because of that, one manufacturer says the newest circuit is measuring 56,000 measurements per second. Whoa. Another one says 100 times per second. So it's constantly analyzing the environment, and it's determining, is that speech or is that noise? And it's looking at the hearing loss that we're trying to accomplish, and it's making decisions for you that are very quick and automatic, and it can do a better job than you could ever do manually.
This is so amazing and interesting. Nancy and I just recently watched on TV a series about our space program and landing a man on the moon. And I pointed out, I've been told there's more technology right here in this cell phone than was used to put a man on the moon. Now,
right. And you have to remember that modern-day hearing aids are running on an aspirin-sized battery, whereas the battery that powered the computer that went to the moon would take a room.
Isn't that amazing? There's a little bitty battery in here, little tiny thing.
And most of the modern hearing aids don't even have replaceable batteries anymore. They're rechargeable using lithium-ion batteries. And at night when you go to bed, you put the hearing aid in a charging unit, and it recharges it for another 18 hours of use the next day. So you never have batteries to replace. That's for people with dexterity issues or just the convenience of not having to replace batteries.
This is just an amazing array of technology.
It really is.
It really is, and it's focused into one area. And I can tell you, one of the reasons, in my opinion, for the growth in the hearing aid industry is because people have finally discovered that they have been exposed to those things which cause deterioration in hearing even before they get to be 65. They're noticing something, and at least it's some companies know it. Otherwise, they wouldn't invest all this time in the technology.
And another thing that you have to remember, you can't discount, is that the reason why there's been such an explosion in technology is because part of what everybody's paid for in the price of hearing aids is research and development. And so some of these 5 major manufacturers of hearing aids have literally spent hundreds of millions of dollars on research and development to make their product do these performing things. So
yes, my hearing aids, I can have them set so the little buttons on the top up here that don't even look like buttons, but they're there. You can have a choice of pushing the button if you're in a music show in Branson. For instance, I tested them down there. Push the button and you have surround sound.
Right.
Or you can have them set so that you can raise or lower the volume by pushing the button.
And not to overemphasize, but that technology was breakthrough technology 8 years ago.
Yeah, 8 years ago.
Now hearing aids automatically sense that when you change environments, instead of you pushing a button, the hearing aid automatically senses that you're in a different environment and changes to that setting without. So the more automatic you can let the hearing aid do it, the less you have to remember what model or what mode you're supposed to be in. And
are we talking about in in here there's a computer, basically?
Yeah, there's processors, and some companies now have stacked processors. So they have, instead of just one process, they have two computer chips that are doing independent functions, and they can do calculations so much faster that way.
I think it'd be extremely interesting to be able to see in magnification the interior of these hearing aids, to see how those tiny little parts that make up this amazing computer.
Yeah, it's and you can go on YouTube and find each one of those major manufacturers have produced videos that explain how a hearing aid is made, and explains their dedication to it, and it's quite interesting when you do some research as to the manufacturers. When I started in the industry in 1982, there were over 40 manufacturers of hearing aids. Now there's 5, because research and development has just become so expensive that the big guys have gobbled up the little guys, and little guys can't afford to do that. So when you see an advertisement in the paper of a hearing aid that costs $500 and that they're so cheap because they've cut out the middleman, that's just marketing. That's marketing hype. There's no way that you can devote hundreds of millions of dollars to research and development and sell it, at a discount price. It's just not possible.
In a little bit, Matt, be prepared for another commercial, if you will. But right now, I have this idea. I'm gonna promote this idea with the president of Acts Ministry, Dr. Jim Wining. If we ever have the ministry sponsor a health show, everything health related, and have exhibits, I'm going to promote with him the idea of managing to set up a hearing aid station or booth, and if possible, have somebody like you, if people attend this show, get their hearing tested on the spot.
Yeah, and there's screening. There's screening tools where you can do that.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're in a group and there's 75 or 100 people wandering around, you wouldn't feel very conspicuous wandering in and having Steve do a hearing check. Might be interesting to find out what you're not hearing. You know?
They have screening otoscopes where we can look in the ear and make sure there's no wax that's blocking the ear, so you can get an accurate test, because wax impaction would affect the hearing test. And then they can do a four-tone screen in just a matter of 20 seconds or 30 seconds. It just admits a 35 dB sound or 25 dB sound at each one of those frequencies, and you either fail or pass that screening. So if you fail the screening, it might mean you have a hearing loss, and you need to have, you need to have a test in a soundproof booth.
Okay.
It's more involved.
All right, now, right after this commercial, little heads up, I want to talk about tinnitus. All right, commercial time, Matt.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Paul.
You're welcome.
So I got a cube zoom myself in here. Hi, everybody. Matt again. Good to see you guys. I do know that I have a problem with my hearing, Dr. Paul, by the way. I've listened to a lot of loud music. So this is
I
very
rest my
relevant.
case.
Anyways, we'll put his number back up so you guys can get in touch with him about maybe setting up an appointment or something to have your hearing checked. But for right now, I want to talk about berberine HCI on naturalsolutionstore.bz. Berberine, it has antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, and immune-enhancing properties. It is effective against a wide range of protozoa and fungi. I tell people that's me. I'm a fun guy. It can be used topically on cuts and wounds. Also, it's perhaps most commonly used to treat gastrointestinal issues, and we all know what those are. So, at least a lot of them. Now, preliminary research suggests that berberine's beneficial effects may cascade into helping many different conditions, including, but not limited to, depression, cancer, inflammatory infections, and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or NAFLD for short, as I like to call it. And it helps by helping to reduce the fat buildup in your liver. So it helps to lower cholesterol, supports your blood sugar metabolism, And it supports cardiovascular health. Those of you who don't know, cardiovascular health is heart health, which is very important considering we need a heart to live, and it's the most overworked part of our body, I would say. It's a muscle that pumps from the day you're born, from the day you're conceived, to the day that you die. So, check it out. NaturalSolutionStore.bz. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much, Matt. And by the way, the heart certainly works a lot harder in everyone than the brain. The brain is probably the most underused. Just my thought.
What are you trying to say, Dr. Paul?
I'm trying to say that people feel more than they think. Maybe. Anyway, tinnitus, Steve, what can you tell us? That is ringing in the ears.
Right, and ringing in the ears is a warning sign. If you drop something on your toe, it would send a nerve signal to the brain that, ouch, I'm hurt. And when you have damage to the delicate inner ears, of hair cells of the inner ear where you hear with, the actual organ of hearing, when there's damage done to those hair cells, then they're communicating to the brain in the only language they have, which is sound. They don't have nerve endings like the rest of our body. They have sound. And so that ringing is a cry for help to the brain. I'm hurt, I'm hurt, I'm hurt. And like a 2-year-old, it's going to keep crying until it gets an attention, until it gets some treatment. So as long as you've had ringing in the ears, you've likely had some hearing damage.
I remember when tinnitus first struck me. It was in the 1980s, early 80s. I had offices in this very building, and I was struggling with cluster headaches.
Oh, yes.
And I was gobbling aspirin, which was not good. I didn't know that. There was a lot of things I didn't know back then. And one day, right out here, outside this building, I remember it like it was yesterday, I was sitting in the car waiting for the traffic light to change here at Sunshine and Glenstone. And all of a sudden, I had this ringing in my ears. That was back in the early 80s. I still have the ringing in my ears today. I have it right now. Tinnitus. Right now. I have it right now.
And it can affect different people different ways. It doesn't always have to be a high-pitched ringing. It can be like seashells for some. It can be just different tones and different frequencies, and it's not one pattern for everyone.
One day, a friend of mine who was educated as a chiropractor, practiced a while, gave that up and went into another portion of medicine, now retired, but he came in forward in one of our services for prayer because he had crickets in his ears. Sounded like crickets.
Mm-hmm.
Katydids or crickets is often how it's explained.
Right.
Yes.
So tinnitus is it's a warning. Something's going on with your hearing. So
right. And I often get the question, is it tinnitus or is it tinnitus? Tomato. Usually in the medical field, anytime there's an itis, that means that there's an inflammation. And it's not necessarily tinnitus. Tinnitus is the correct pronunciation, but it just means noise in your ear that is a result of damage.
Oh, then does that ever diminish if you get that taken care of?
It can. There's a lot of different treatments for it. One of the treatments is cognitive behavioral therapy. Another is hearing aids. Generally, when we do a hearing test, we find the frequency that the tinnitus is affecting you, and we try to match the frequency in the hearing aid to phase cancel that out. And that's usually effective. But when it's quiet at night and you're ready to go to bed, you've taken your hearing aids out, guess what's still there?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you never really get rid of it.
It's not a cure, it's a treatment.
Yeah.
Now, Matt, our producer, station manager, you say you have tinnitus.
Yes, I do.
Does it show up? Matt has other employment. He works nights. Does this, because you're trying to sleep during the day, become an issue for your sleep during the day?
It's been happening so long that I really I guess I'm used to it by now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And I
you
know-
sometimes you have to stop and think, where is it? And there it is.
Yeah, once I start thinking about it, I definitely can hear it.
All
As
right.
soon as you said that word, all of a sudden it became
There it was.
noticeable to me.
Right.
And it's been like that for a long time.
And how about you? Do you recognize a reduction in the tinnitus when you have the hearing aids
Right.
on?
When I have the hearing aids on.
Some of that is because your brain is being distracted by hearing other things it's not used to hearing,
right.
and
That's
some of
right.
that is because it's addressing those particular frequencies.
See, it's like range of hearing. When I'm wearing my Bluetooth thing, and I'm watching, like, my favorite illustration is a great John Wayne Western, where there's big sound. You actually hear some things way over here, and way over here, that if you turn that Bluetooth off, you don't hear. You're only hearing in this range.
Right.
I mean, this is beyond just surround sound in a movie theater.
That's called bandwidth. And so hearing aids have been able to increase bandwidth so that they amplify frequencies below speech frequencies and above speech frequencies that give the experience of sound. And that's one of the reasons why they sound more natural.
I'm not sure about this, Steve, but I like to think that maybe because of my hearing aids and the Bluetooth, I probably hear some things in a big movie production that the sound people did not intend to be on the soundtrack. I don't know that for sure.
Well, they put it there for a reason.
Well, maybe okay, but it's a marker that could go unnoticed
Right.
unless you're
That's right.
equipped. Well, we're down to about 3 minutes now, and in those 3 minutes, I can tell you what's coming up next week. Next week we have Dr. John Clark, medical doctor who's also an ordained minister, associate pastor at a local church here in Springburg, USA, and I've known him for years. He's very unique, Steve, in that he has a totally private practice. He is not employed by a hospital or a clinic. He has a total private practice.
So he's an MD.
And he is an MD, and he's been in practice here in Springfield for years. And he's also, as I said, an ordained minister and an associate pastor of a local church here in Springfield. So Dr. John Clark next week at this time. And then, of course, next week at this time, some of the workshops for Access will be going on up on the 3rd floor right at this time. So Nancy and I will miss the first part of the workshops. We'll be here, and then we'll be up there to participate in those workshops too. But anyway, want you to remember also that if you visit Branson, Missouri, stop by the Shrine of the Holy Spirit. It's a beautiful, beautiful facility, 3 buildings and a huge wall in this beautiful Ozark Mountain cliff. Every square has a scripture verse engraved in it. And of the 3 buildings there, one is a gift shop, and one is a bookstore, and the other is this beautiful little chapel, seats 68 people, and there's water features all over the area, and it's open, it's free to the public. Just stop by, and on the last Sunday in September, First Acts Church will have an afternoon service there involving some Springfield people and some Branson people. Well, I'm down to my slow close time, right? Oh, okay. I'm famous for this. My name is Paul Collins,
Indeed.
and this is my wife, Nancy. Our special guest, Steve Flanagan, from the hearing aid specialist. He knows all about them. And this is the friendliest show on radio. It's the best look on Facebook. Now hang with me, because it's also for every rube on YouTube. We had a good time today. We'll see you next Friday. And this show, The Happy Hour, comes on every Friday at this time at 9 o'clock until 9:55, which is right now. See you next week.